guest speaker is an accomplished television sitcom writer. He's produced hit series such as Newhart, A Different World, host Sabrina the Teenage Witch. What was that show? Yeah! All right.
I love the 90s.
I did too.
Also wrote Elephant Books. I'm telling you guys, this book is phenomenal. It's Elephant Books, an insider guide to writing for TV sitcoms. You see mine looks like an old Bible, right? I got it when I was up at UCLA Extension courses, and I saw it in the bookstore and got it and was drawn to it, and it was really a benefit to my writing skills. So the book gives you a step-by-step blueprint on creating a sitcom, a comedy script for television. So without further ado, Sheldon Bull.
So the first thing I'm supposed to do is tell you a little bit about myself, other than what you've already heard. I grew up in Pasadena, was born and raised here, went to Don Benito Elementary School, John Marshall Junior High School, Pasadena City College. Graduated from Pasadena City College with an AA in a million years ago. This place is much nicer than it was when I went here. It's much more crowded, but this classroom is like 100 times nicer than any class I ever had. I finished here in '72. I went way before your parents were born, not to mention you. I went to UCLA from here, transferred. Now, why did I end up, as a TV writer? I liked acting when I was in high school. I had the greatest high school drama teacher of all time, Abel Franco, whose name is on the side of the building at Pasadena High School. If you ever go over there and you look at the little theater, it says Abel Franco Little Theater. And the reason those letters are up there is because I paid to have them put up there. Because this was the greatest man who ever lived. And he started my life and my career by welcoming me into his drama department, which was just awesome in those days. We won everything. We beat Beverly Hills High, we beat Hollywood High, we beat everybody. So I got the bug in high school. I wanted to be an actor. I came here to PCC because I was kind of, at 18, pretty nervous about going away to school for 4 years, plus my parents had no money. So, and the school was free in those days, and still pretty close to free, because my daughter just finished at PCC last spring. So I came here, and it was great to get into the TV department here and get to work with real cameras and real lights and all that. It was just great. And I figured out while I was here that maybe acting isn't the way to go for me because I'm not that good looking, and I really wasn't the best actor at PCC, and I figured, man, if you're not the best actor at PCC, you better forget about Hollywood. So I got thinking more about getting into TV and everything. I took some writing courses here. Again, it was a great experience here in knowing that I absolutely wanted to be in Hollywood doing something, but I didn't know how to do it or what to do. So I transferred to UCLA. In those days, and apparently from what I hear, it still is, if you have a certain GPA out of PCC, this is a major feeder school into UCLA. So I got into UCLA when they told me that there's no way I could get into UCLA, but I got in there from here. While I was at UCLA, I started getting interested in writing for the screen. I had a friend from high school, Cynthia Whitcomb, who was already at UCLA and was taking the screenwriting program there. So I started collaborating with her. Anyway, I finished UCLA Film School with a specialty in screenwriting, and a lot of good that does you. So I took a year off, because what I really wanted to do, I realized I didn't really want to write movies, because I didn't have enough life experience then to know what movie to write. But I wanted to get into half-hour sitcom, because I loved those, and that's what I really felt like I could do. So I wrote 1 million scripts by myself, just on my own, taught myself how to do it. I mean, really a lot of scripts, like 12, 20, 30 scripts. Then I met, when I was in grad school at UCLA, I met this great guy, Bill Frug, who was still working in the business. And Bill read my stuff, and he said, "You're good, I'll help you." He says, "I never do this, but I'm going to help you." So I worked with him for about 6 months, rewriting these 2 sitcom scripts that I had written. I mean, rewriting them over and over and over and over again. I would give him a draft. I thought it was perfect. It would come back, every single page would have red, 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 red all over it, and words like shit, you know, written across the entire page. It was tough, man. This guy was tough. But I finally got these 2 scripts into shape. And then he started taking them around to people that he knew in the business, and I got my first job on a sitcom called The McLean-Stevenson Show in the fall of 1976. So it's just doing the math. It's like, what, 35 years ago this month.
That's okay. Some of us have seen it.
No, you haven't. You haven't seen the McLean-Stevenson Show. I promise you haven't seen that. We made 8 episodes of that show, which were 7 too many. Oh, it was terrible. It was a terrible show. And I started out on that show as apprentice writer. The Writers Guild had a program, which I was not a member of. Writers Guild had a program where producers could hire somebody. And I got paid $250 a week to work on this show, which was less than what the secretaries were making, but I would have given them the money. Anyway, so that started my career, and because I was prepared when I got this first job, because I'd written so many scripts. I had written so many movie scripts. I had written so many TV scripts, all for free, nobody asking me, nobody telling me how to do it, me just figuring it out for myself. I joined a little writers group when I was at UCLA, and 2 of us ended up making it, you know, and we would just get together on Thursday nights. So anyway, that's how I got where I am today, or where I was. I worked for 25 years in Hollywood, and I worked on 11 primetime sitcoms that, you know, were on at night on NBC or CBS or ABC. In those days, there wasn't much in the way of cable. And I had 3 big hit shows. I had Newhart, which ran for 9 years, and I got 2 Emmy nominations for producing that show. Then Barry Kemp and I did Coach, which ran for 9 years and was a huge hit and made me a rich man. And then I worked on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the show you guys have heard of, which was the most fun I ever had in show business, was working on that show, because we did all that magic and all that green screen. We had the talking cat and all that stuff. It was just a blast. And also, we didn't have to work crazy hours on that show because there was no audience, because we had to do all that magic. So we would rehearse for 2 days and shoot for 3 days, whereas on most sitcoms, they rehearse for 4 days and then shoot on Friday night. Show like 2.5 Men or The Big Bang Theory or a show like that, they shoot on Friday night, you know, start about 7:30 and finish whenever they finish. But Sabrina, we shot for 3 days. I also got the opportunity to direct 3 episodes of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, so that was really cool. We went on location one time. We went out to the Paramount Ranch out in the Malibu Hills out there, and we did a full-on Western that I got to direct. And I mean, I had cowboys, I had horses, I had cattle, I had chickens, I had a crane that I could put the camera on. I got to ride up on the friggin' crane. I mean, if you're talking about feeling like a director, ride up on a crane, you know. So it was great. So that's how I got where I am today. What I want to talk to you guys about for just a couple more minutes, and then we'll open it up to questions, is these 3, you know, really kind of obvious words that I wrote on the whiteboard up here. In my book, I keep coming back to these 3 words a lot, and this has to do not just if you want to be a TV writer, which maybe a few of you do, but this is engineers here. So you guys are, some of you are at least thinking about getting into the engineering or the technical side of either radio or television or motion pictures. All of show business, all of Hollywood is incredibly competitive, as I'm sure you know. Think about how competitive you think it really is, and then multiply that by 1,000, because it's way more competitive than you even dream. And I don't say that to turn you off, I just say that to open your eyes. It's the NBA. And you know how many jobs there are in the NBA. Very few, and there are very few in Hollywood, and for every job there is, Whether you're an actor or whether you're a sound technician or a makeup artist or whatever, there are 10,000 people that want that job, and they're all really good at it. So the competition is insane. So what do? How do you make it? How do you break into this business that you can't break into? Well, you can break into it because I did it, and I came from absolutely nowhere. And so when I wrote my book, I tried to figure out, well, what did I have going for me? What did I do right as opposed to 1,000 things I did wrong? Well, you need three things. Whether you want to be an engineer or a director or a producer or reading the news at night on Channel 9 or whatever it is that you want to do, you need three things. First of all, you need talent. You can't control how much talent you are given, but the one thing you can figure out is, what am I good at? And that's why I gave up acting, because I really realized I love acting. I can make people laugh. I'm really not that good at it. So I was searching around for something else that I was good at because I had to be in show business or I was going to die. And I found out that, starting here, in the first couple courses I took here, I found out that, hey, I'm pretty good at writing. And then the more I did it and the more I got with my peers in writers' groups and taking classes and everything, I kept noticing that I was kind of usually the best one. So that thing you can't control, but you can develop by figuring out what your talent is and then going for that thing that you're good at and getting all the education and the experience with it that you can. I wrote, as I told you, 1 million spec scripts, way more than people usually do. I teach sitcom writing every once in a while. I've taught it at UCLA Extension. I've taught it at UNLV. I've had graduate students, who are getting an MFA in screenwriting who don't want to do the work. They want to be in grad school, but they don't necessarily want to move on to the next thing. If you're willing to do the work, you're way ahead of everybody else. That's how you develop your talent, and that's where this word comes in. And look, you can't control this, and you can develop it, but you can't control it. You can't control this, and I'm going to get to this last, but you can control this. You can control determination. How determined are you? And if you've got the determination to stick with it, then you can make it. You really can. And in whatever it is you want to do in this insanely competitive business, if you stick with it and you are really prepared and determined, you will find a way in. I absolutely guarantee it. The determined people, I say in the book, in a 10-round bout, between talent and determination, I will take determination every time. I have worked with so many people who are insanely successful, who have a Porsche, who have a big house in the Hollywood Hills, who are not that talented. Really, honestly, not that talented. But they're insanely determined. So this is the key in Hollywood, is just hanging in there, using your imagination to find ways to break in. This is the key. This is the thing that's going to make the difference in your life in terms of getting your dreams to come true. Determination. Now, what determination can also do, combined with talent, is lead you to a lucky break. You're going to have a lucky break, and you can't control that either. You can control this, you can't control this, you can't control this. But when that lucky break comes, first of all, I can give you some clues about how to get to your lucky break, how to help your lucky break find you. And that is being prepared. Doing anything you can, volunteering to help somebody else out on the film that they're making or the video they're making. Making friends with your teachers and professors. I mean, because I made friends with Bill Frug, and I didn't, bother the guy, but he read the stuff that I had written and he really liked it. And because then I followed through and did what he told me to do, which was rewrite those scripts 1 billion times and listen to his really harsh and cruel notes over and over again, and then do the work that he was telling me to do, I put myself in a position so that when my lucky break came, I was ready. Because when opportunity knocks, you can open up the door, but if you don't have anything to provide to opportunity, opportunity is going to go to the next door. So you can make yourself ready for your lucky break by by volunteering, by helping out at your friend's video, the play, working at the radio station, whatever it is that you can get a shot at doing, even if they're not paying you, go do it. Because you never know where it's going to lead. So that's how you got to use your imagination. That's how you get to a lucky break, but you've got to use your imagination. Everybody asks me, I do this from time to time, speak to college classes, speak to groups of writers, talk at the Writers Guild or whatever, and everybody's, how do I get an agent? How do I get my break? All that. You have to figure that out. I also get like 20 emails a week. Because they've read my book, how do I get my break? You have to figure that out. You have to, this is maybe the hardest part of it, is you using your imagination to figure out what your lucky break is going to be, how to put yourself in that world where somebody can find you. That's why I tell a lot of people who send me emails, well, the first thing you got to do is move to LA. Now, you guys got that beat because you're in LA, and it's all happening not that far away from here. It's just over on the other side of the 5 freeway is where it all starts. And if you're around and doing things, then somebody will find you eventually and give you a shot. So that's sort of my little speech, and I think generally that I can tell you stories, if you want to hear them or whatever, but I wanted to say stuff that would, again, apply to all of you, not just people who want to be writers. It's just so hard to get into Hollywood. It's harder than ever. The cool thing is there are all these venues now that weren't there when I started. I mean, when I started in 1976, there was just basically the 3 broadcast networks. Fox wasn't even around yet. There was just ABC, NBC, and CBS. And there was really very little cable. If you lived here in Pasadena, you had cable because if you live too close to Mount Wilson, you can't get a picture on your rabbit ears, But you guys don't even know what I'm talking about, probably. But we used to get TV from an aerial on the roof of our house. And where I lived up in the Hastings Ranch, you could only get 3 channels up there. And then cable came along, and suddenly, there was a clear picture on Channel 11 for the first time. It was so exciting. There are all these venues now. I just did a project this year. I worked for 10 months on a project, a 2-hour script that I wrote for a company that wants to release the finished product on multiple platforms. They want to release it perhaps as a feature film overseas, perhaps as a TV movie in Europe and in Canada. They also are talking about releasing it on the internet. And they're also talking about breaking it up and releasing it as a download on cell phones. Multi-platform releasing. This is like the big thing now. Michael Eisner is putting like $500 million into this. And there are lots of other people. AOL is putting a ton of money into this. Rogers Media in Canada is putting a lot of. So there are all these opportunities in cable, online, for phones, everything, to get into all of this. You guys have more opportunities than existed for me, but the competition is just as tough, and a lot of times the pay is crappy, but you keep working at it, and suddenly something opens up, and then suddenly you're making a ton of money. Okay, so that's my general talk, my pep talk. I think it's cool that you're in this club. Shows you're serious. And now questions. Yeah.
What's one of the best stories you've heard of an unconventional way of somebody getting a lucky break?
My friend Barry Kemp, with whom who created Newhart and Coach, and I was his #2 guy in both of those shows, was a life insurance salesman in Phoenix, Arizona. But he wanted to be in show business. He wanted to be a writer, And he was writing dinner theater, having these horrible plays put on in Phoenix, Arizona, for old people, so they have dinner at 5 o'clock, and then they put on this crappy show for them. But, it was something. But he really wanted to break into Hollywood. He went to a club on New Year's Eve one night and to see Jerry Van Dyke, who, again, maybe some of you have heard of, he was on Coach. He was Dick Van Dyke's younger brother. So he went to see Jerry at a club. And after Jerry did his set, Barry's wife said, "Go talk to him." And Barry's like, "No," and she says, "Go talk to him. What do I say?" "Well, just go up to him and tell him you like the set. Tell him who you are." So he went up to Jerry after the show, hey, Mr. Van Dyke, I really liked your set. I really liked watching you on the Dick Van Dyke Show. So it's, oh, that's great, kid. Thanks. So what's going on with you? Well, I really want to get into it. To be a comedy writer and everything. Well, can you write some jokes? Yeah. He says, okay, come to my hotel room tomorrow morning and bring me 50, come to my hotel room tomorrow morning, bring me 50 jokes.
Oh, wow.
So he stayed up all night. He'd never even tried this before. Wrote 50 jokes, went to Jerry's hotel room, pitched them all to him. Jerry liked 2 and bought them, I think, for $5 each, but said, anytime you have a joke, send me another one. So he started, just obsessively writing jokes for Jerry. And he kind of knew Jerry's act and all that, and started sending him more and more stuff. Finally, Jerry got pretty happy with the stuff Barry was sending, and he says, look, I've got this friend in LA named James L. Brooks. He's starting up a new company at Paramount Pictures. He's starting a new series called Taxi. Why don't you come out and meet Jim? So he flew out here, and they hired him. And that's how his career got started. There are a lot of wow stories like that, lots of them. But that's one of my favorite ones. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So when you work hard, so what do you have in your computer right now?
In my computer right now, I have a bunch of stuff. Again, I just finished this thing I was working on for 10 months, which was a heavy drama, which I'd never done before, for this company that is. They call themselves a digital studio. They just have office space in Beverly Hills. Michael Eisner started the company, and but they are making these movies for next to nothing, and then launching them on the internet, overseas, and even on phones. I did a project like that a few years ago. We were kind of ahead of the curve for a company in Europe called Orange. Where we created a series for your cell phone so that European kids, when they're standing in line waiting for a tram to come or a subway or something, they'd have this 2-minute show to watch. The company bailed out at the last minute, but it was a really cool thing. It's too bad. Something like that's going to happen. Right now, I've got a thing that I'm also looking to maybe launch on the internet, which is kind of a very bent, sick, dark, funny sci-fi thing. That a friend of mine and I are looking to launch. And I've got another sci-fi thing that I'm developing maybe for TV. And of course, I've always got a spec screenplay that I'm writing because I never learned. So.
Yeah, I'm into sci-fi, but in a sitcom, how much, what's the proportion of seriousness versus the comedy?
Well, hopefully it's mostly comedy only, but depends on the show. It depends on the show. I mean, we tried to do Coach. We tried to do serious stuff, especially the first couple of years, more serious stuff on Coach. I mean, we're always looking to get laughs, but try to do sometimes more serious stories. Sabrina, it was for 11-year-old girls. I mean, so it was, that was all just hijinks and magic and fun. And then Sabrina was always about the same thing every week. I don't know if any of you who watched it ever noticed. But it was basically Sabrina uses her magic and then finds out she would have been better off if she had just done things a normal way. Which was sort of a nice message to send to kids, which is it would be really cool to have magical powers, but truly, if you want to get along with your teachers and your friends, you have to develop people skills. You can't just turn them into an aardvark, But we had so much fun. We had everybody in show business on that show. I mean, everybody. Johnny Mathis, and we had all these rock groups on. We had the 10,000 Maniacs, and we had In Sync, and we had the Backstreet Boys, and we had Violent Femmes, and we had Smashing Pumpkins. We had everybody on that show. A lot of these bands are broken up now. But, huh?
Britney Spears, Danny.
We had Britney. But my daughter has still in her room, she has a poster signed to Julie from Britney, that she gave me, on the set that day. So we had animals, we had a lion, we had an elephant, we had chimps, it was loads of fun. So not too much seriousness on Sabrina, but on other shows, a little more. You watch them. Sometimes Modern Family will get a little serious and, you know, and heartfelt, but some of them, you know, I mean, 2.5 Men is just, you know, penis jokes, you know. Yeah, somebody else. You've had 17 questions, yeah.
Since you are a writer, for all the writers in the room,
Yeah.
would you give any tips on like how you can develop like how you write, your writing style or anything like that? Like,
Yes, read my book. You know, there are basics to, you know, just watch it, watch half hour and everything. And like, if you want to write for TV, just start copying the shows that you like. I mean, that's what I always tell everybody. Pick the show, if you want to write for TV, pick the show that you like the most, and then try to write an episode of that. And in my book, I mean, we don't have time to, I really would give you a whole lecture on it if we had time. And save you the $12 or whatever it is on Amazon. But I really go into like 300 pages of detail on how to do all this, yes.
Typically, how many people are part of a writing team or a writing board?
Writing staff on a TV show? Depends on the show. But usually 6, 7, 8, you know. I mean, sometimes you're watching these half hours, like you watch Chuck Lorre's shows, and there are so many names that you think, how can all those people even get into a room together? You know, and maybe they don't. But I mean, we did Newhart when we first started. We only had 3 people, and we had about 8 on Sabrina. You know, I mean, at Roseanne one time. I never worked on Roseanne, but I had a friend who worked on Roseanne. Boy, but do you guys remember Roseanne with Roseanne Barr? They worked 365 days a week on that show. They worked on Christmas. They worked on Thanksgiving because they were so afraid of her. And if you've ever met her, you understand why. But they had like 25 people on that show. You know, they had to have like a second row of chairs in the conference room. But it's usually like half a dozen, something like that, yeah.
Do most television writers exclusively write for one show at a time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. In the old days, people used to freelance and write on a bunch of different shows, but that is really over. And if you're working on a show, you're working there, if it's a half hour, even if it's a 1 hour, it's the same thing. You're working there, no place else. You're probably working 6 or 7 days a week. It's really long hours, it's really hard, and the pay is insane. Yeah.
Well, you're saying that like there's no day off basically for Roseanne. For certain shows, would you say there's like times where you spend more time with your family than the people you work with?
Depends on the show. But some of these shows, you know, like a lot of stuff on cable and stuff on HBO and Showtime and all that, they only do 13. So you probably get a lot of time. I mean, I have some friends that work on those shows, and you get like, and even when I was working on sitcoms, we would get 2 and 3 months off, you know, between seasons, so that you could go and hang out, you know, and get to know your wife again and that kind of stuff, you know. Because your children, you're like, you grew a foot. Do you need me to stop?
No.
Oh, okay. But it's a lot of hours. It's just that it's so much fun, especially on a comedy, and you're making so much money, you know, and you know it's not going to last very long. I mean, you're lucky. I was really lucky. Even though I'm still doing it a little bit, when I was really intensely working, I had a 25-year career, which is crazy long. You know, almost nobody gets to work that long. You have a couple superstars like Chuck Lorre, who's been at this almost as long as I have. Chuck and I started, you know, about the same time, and then he became much more successful than me. But usually you have a 10, 15-year run, you know. But you can make a lot of money during that time, and then you can just go to the beach for the rest of your life. You know, it's cool. Yeah.
In your book, you talk about creating a portfolio and spec scripts.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, what makes a fledgling writer stand out from the crowd?
These days, what they're looking for writers is they like spec pilots, original pilots, and something. They really like stuff that's really off the wall. It's not going to get made. I mean, you have to understand. You can write like this. I'm doing something now that is completely crazy. They're probably not going to make it, but that's a way to show your originality. So it's always good to have, like, if you want to write for half hour, to have a really good, you know, Modern Family, a really good Big Bang Theory, you know, a really good New Girl maybe, you know, or whatever show you like, but then have a really crazy from the Moon pilot, you know, that's really funny and really bent, because they really love to read stuff like that. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
How is reality TV affecting the writers now? Is it going to go back to comedy?
It's up to you guys. You have to watch the scripted shows and stop watching Dancing with the Stars. Yeah.
Do you see it going towards back to that?
It depends on the audience. The networks do not want to do scripted shows. Not any, not ever, because they're too expensive. Dancing with the Stars costs nothing. You know, who can lose the most weight this week? You know, all those stupid shows that you all watch cost nothing. Even when they give people huge prizes, they give them a car, they give them $1 million or something, that's chump change. It costs nothing compared to what it costs to produce a scripted show. I mean, I left Sabrina, you know, 10 years ago, and we were running close to $1 million an episode on that show. And now it's $2 and $3 million an episode. They don't want to spend that money when they can prop up, you know, Simon Cowell, you know, for $400,000, you know, so why do it? So if you guys like the scripted shows and you watch those, then they'll do more. But as long as people are watching those reality shows, they're just going to keep doing them because it costs them nothing. Yeah.
How's the recent strike, how's that affected the writing community in Hollywood?
The one from a couple of years ago? Well, I think everybody's pretty much recovered from that. It was awful. I mean, fortunately, I wasn't really working all that much anymore by the time that hit. But people, as they do in every strike, people lost their houses and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's largely recovered. It's just that there isn't the kind of employment that there once was in terms of the big. But there's all of this stuff on cable. I mean, there's. You know, how many people are working on Family Guy? There's like 93 guys working on that show. And by it's like women, start getting into comedy. And I mean, there is a lot more of it than there was. When I started out, there were absolutely no women comedy writers, not any. Now it's getting to be 30, 40%. Get in there. You know, you're as good as the guys are. You know, maybe you're taught not to be funny, but get over it. You know, because you look at a show like, you know, like Family Guy, there's like a zillion people working on that show. Maybe they're not making all that much money, but they're having a lot of fun doing really silly stuff, yeah.
What is the starting pay rate for a writer that just gets on?
I don't really know what the starting pay rate is, but like the minimum pay for, I think, a half-hour sitcom episode on the networks right now is something like $25,000 for one episode. So if you're working on a show, you're brand new and everything, you're probably going to be making at least $3,000 or $4,000 a week, which is pretty good money. Pretty good money, you know. I don't think you'd turn that down. Yes, in the back.
I think her question was, since you said there's like 90-something people working on Family Guy, is that going to affect the pay?
Sure, but it's a job, you know. And then you get to, you know, the thing that's cool about working on it, a lot of those guys who work on Family Guy, because it is guys, you know, on Family Guy. I don't know if there are any women working on that show. And you got to beat those guys down because it's a boys' club and they don't want you there, and because they're all nerds and geeks and they don't know how to talk to women and they're afraid of you. So you have to just kind of beat them up, you know, and make them more afraid of you so that they hire you. Yeah, the pay is probably crappy for a lot of those people, but in terms of they're scraping by on $80,000 or $90,000 a year, which probably doesn't sound too bad to a lot of people here. But the opportunities that come from something like that, because once you're on a show like that, then they want you. They want you to create your own show. You know, I mean, if you've read Seth MacFarlane's story of how he got started and where that all came from, and you see the original drawings from the original Family Guy cartoon that he did and everything, and how far that has evolved, and how insanely rich that guy is now, you know, it's worth it. Work for free for a long time. You know, who cares? You know, your opportunity's going to come. Anybody else? Okay.
Come on, guys. You have any last questions?
Yes.
Are you still writing?
Yeah.
And how long does it take you for, like, for example, to write an episode or something like that?
Again, it depends. When I was working on staff on shows, I took as much time as I had. At the beginning of the season, before we started shooting, because what you do is you start on a series in like May or June is when everybody comes back to work, and if it's a new show, it's the same thing. The networks announce in early May what shows are going to be on their fall schedule. And then if it's a new show, the person who did the pilot or the people that did the pilot assemble a writing staff pretty quickly. All the agencies hover around and you put a staff together. And then by June, you've got offices and you're starting to work. And if you're a returning show, you probably start sooner than that. At the beginning of the season because you don't start shooting until July, usually. So you've got a lot of time to play basketball and screw around and spend 2 weeks on a script. Then you start shooting shows. And then you start eating up a script every single week. And that doesn't sound like much, but it is. And then these 7 shows that you had banked are gone in 7 weeks, and you have nothing left. And now you're writing shows in 3 days, 2 days, 1 day, all-nighters. You know, I've had plenty of nights where, you know, I got home just in time to take a shower and go back to work. So yeah, sometimes I wrote a show in 8 hours. And sometimes I wrote one in 3 weeks. You know, and a movie script, I mean, this movie script that I just finished, I worked on that for 10 months. So you never know. Who hasn't? You in the back. You haven't asked a question.
Before they used to use on the sets, you know, expensive Sonys and Canons to do all the filming and everything. What's going on now? Are they using different types?
Well, they're using really expensive digital cameras now. There are, I think, no shows left that are actually running 35mm film on sprockets on the inside of a camera body. I don't think anybody in television is doing that. So Kodak is like, I don't know if you guys read, but there's some camera shop in Beverly Hills or West LA or something. Not Mole Richardson, but it was somebody like that, you know, who rents stuff out to everybody. And they just got rid of all of their film cameras. They just sold them at auction because they can't rent them anymore. Yeah. Yes?
Are you using any software to help you write for movies?
Yeah, Final Draft.
Final Draft?
Yeah, yeah. That is the industry standard. If you're writing movie scripts, TV scripts, you know, really plays, you can do everything on Final Draft. It's a little expensive. I think it's, I don't know, it's a couple $100 for the software or something like that. But I have been on Final Draft for almost 10 years. They're constantly updating it. It's a really good program. And the thing is, it's the industry standard. So because nobody, when you submit a script now, nobody submits a hard copy. You just send it to them electronically. And everybody has Final Draft on their computer. So it just comes right up and it's, yeah. So that's the one to get. There used to be a whole bunch of them. Final Drafts run practically everybody out of the business because they're just better.
So you don't submit physical copies of scripts anymore?
Not anymore. Not ever. You know, it's first of all, it's just so much easier to email it to them. It gets there in 1 second, you know. There's no chance of it getting lost. There's no chance of anybody else seeing it. And the other thing is, especially after 9/11, everybody got really paranoid about big packages coming to their office. So everybody just wants it. It's really paperless now. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What is a writer's deepest fear?
Deepest fear? Oh, God, there are so many. Well, I guess the deepest fear is being found out. You know, somebody discovering that you're really not that good, you know. And sooner or later, they do discover that. But I think that's probably the deepest fear. I mean, it's always scary when you go to the table on a TV show or even a movie, because I do table readings of movies, too, all the time. The first time, it's scary every time, but I can remember the first time I had a table reading of a script that I had written with professional actors there. You know, people who I had seen on TV before, and now they're reading my words out loud. And the reading starts, and you think, what if nobody laughs? What if nobody laughs ever once during the whole 45 pages of this script, you know? And I have sat through table readings where nobody laughed, you know? And so, and you age 20 years, and you sweat 9 pounds off yourself, you know, and you go back to your office and you throw up. I mean, I've had all these experiences. I ralphed on my steering wheel in my car one night just before I was getting ready to go home because I was such a wreck from this crazy day. And I was too embarrassed to go back in and get a towel and sort of admit it, so I drove home and cleaned it up when I got home. We're neurotic, crazy people. Crazy people. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
When's the longest that you've gone out without sleep while writing? Like to try to write?
36 hours. Yeah. The only time I ever went longer was when my daughter was born. I was up for 2.5 days. This was kind of a long labor and all of that. But yeah, I was up for 36 straight hours one time.
How did you manage to stay awake?
Caffeine. The same way everybody else does. Yeah.
Did that affect how funny you were?
Well, you think that, the punchier you are, the funnier you think you are, and then you read it the next day and you go, oh. That's like in the 80s when everybody was doing cocaine. And I mean, really, it was crazy. Everyone was doing blow in the 80s, everybody. And writers would do blow in the room thinking that it would make them more brilliant, make them more funny, because they felt so great when they were on coke that they thought, well, certainly then what I write is going to be wonderful. And the stuff sucked. You can't write on drugs. You really can't. It doesn't work. Yeah. Yes. You're next.
What's the turnaround on writing a script and getting it to the talent, like if you're working on a weekly basis in a sitcom?
Well, again, it depends on where you are in the season. Sometimes, the turnaround is 15 minutes. Sometimes you're sending pages to the stage. And sometimes you finish the script, in June, and we don't shoot it until August. So it just depends on where you are in the season and how bad they need the pages. My friend Ken Eston years ago was doing a rewrite on Beverly Hills Cop 2. And he literally was sitting on the soundstage handing Eddie the pages as soon as he finished them. So because he likes to work that way. Some people like to work, when everything is falling apart, and other people like things to be a little more organized. I like them more organized, but Eddie liked, in those days, he really liked the danger. So
before we end, can I ask you, what is the most important thing you learned about the industry?
Well, I think for all of you guys is to just let you know again how competitive it really is. And don't, I hope you want, it will dissuade the people that it should dissuade. It'll scare off the people that it should scare off. It's very competitive, and there's a lot of money at stake. People are making enormous salaries, or they have the potential to make enormous salaries. It doesn't always bring out the best in people when they're under that kind of competition and there's that much money at stake. So your people skills, your ability to get along with others, your ability to control your anger and your frustration. I've had to deal with a lot of anger and frustration in my career. Executives from the studios and the networks give really stupid notes, and then you have to do them. You're in competition with others. So how competitive it is and how much work you have to do, not just to do the thing you're good at, but to stay calm in a crazy situation. That's really one of the major keys.
Thank you.
Okay.
You guys picked this book up.
Thank you.